Good morning, and thank you for returning to another episode of Practical Stoicism. If you'd like to get rid of ads, you can do so for just $6 a month over at stoicism.supercast.com. Before we start, I want to note very briefly that I'll no longer be responding to emails. It's not because I don't want to, it's because there are too many. I'm getting 20 to 30 emails a day, and the response to most of them takes about 20 minutes each because I want to give a good answer, and where appropriate, I want to give good advice. But 4 to 5 hours a day in my email inbox is not sustainable. Some of you I know will hear 4 to 5 hours in my inbox, and you'll cringe because you work in like a corporate environment and a 9 to 5 as I used to, and email is just not fun. I love that I get these emails and that I'm getting the chance to help people, but writing answers to emails 4 to 5 hours a day it's a lot. So moving forward, if you have questions for this podcast, I want you to go to podinbox.com/stoicism. There's a link in the show notes. And what this is going to allow you to do is record your questions there. Now, how is this different? Well, the answer to that is simple. When I answer somebody one-to-one in my email inbox, no one else benefits from it. So it's really hard to justify the amount of time I'm spending in my inbox when the only person who benefits from my answer is the one person who wrote the question. If instead you ask your questions at podinbox.com/stoicism, I can answer them on the show. And not only will you benefit from the answer, but everyone who has the same answer, who might just not be brave enough to ask it, will benefit from it. It will also allow me to make longer episodes, which a lot of you have been asking for. So when I have questions to answer, I'll append them to the end of every meditation episode, as I will in today's, which will make the daily episodes about twice as long as they already are. So it's more content, it's more useful, and it creates a catalog of answers that when somebody asks the same question, something I've already answered, instead of having to answer it again as I have to do an email so frequently, I can now say, hey, go listen to episode 114. I answer this exact question at the 11-minute mark. So this is a way of me being able to keep up with the questions and allow the questions to benefit everybody instead of just one person. So again, that is at podinbox.com/stoicism. Doesn't cost any money to leave these messages, by the way. This is just a way I want you to send me questions moving forward. Okay, so with that, here's meditation 22 from book 4. Do not be whirled about, but in every movement have respect for justice. And on the occasion of every impression, maintain the faculty of comprehension or understanding. In every moment, have respect to justice. What does that mean? Justice, to the Stoics, was more like what we think of as fair dealings today. To be a just person meant to be just in your dealings with others, and just meant fair and kind and forgiving and gracious and understanding. Marcus is asking us here not to get caught up in the whirlwind of emotion that can so often accompany our dealings with others. Don't let their abrasiveness or ornery position, to quote the Sheriff of Nottingham in Disney's Robin Hood, get your dander up. Your job is to be just, so pay attention to that job. Don't let this other person or these other people cause you to deal unjustly with them, or goodness forbid, unjustly with others who might also be involved in the dealing or whom you might have dealings with later on in the day after this person has put you in a sour mood. And on the occasion of every impression, maintain the faculty of comprehension or understanding. And what does this mean? It means when you are greeted with an impression, no matter what it is, the impression that someone is unkind because they are angry, or that someone doesn't care because they are late, or that your partner is angry with you because they didn't call you at work today. When those impressions present themselves, keep focused on maintaining your faculties, specifically your faculties of comprehension, as in you need to comprehend all of the information that you're taking in during these dealings and that you have access to, and understanding, as in you need to understand that you don't have all the details. Some information you do not have access to. You don't have the full picture. So then this meditation is telling us in our dealings with others that we need to remember as Stoics that we're called to deal justly with people, and that a necessary part of that is ensuring that we're paying attention to our minds. We're not just winging it, and we're not ascending to our potentially very false impressions of a situation. This is extremely difficult, and it's part of why becoming dedicated to any philosophy or religion or code of living is a hard thing to do and a hard choice to make. It is easier to just go with the flow. to drift through life, to be led through existence by our emotions alone. They are powerful things, and they can easily take over when we don't put in the effort, the constant effort, to pay attention to them, process them correctly and in a healthy way, and keep them from ruling us. So giving people the benefit of the doubt, remembering you don't have all the facts, understanding that they may be behaving the way they're behaving because they don't understand the value of virtue. No one has taught it to them, or that there might be a lot going on in their lives and they're feeling overwhelmed. Just basically being decent to people when they seem perhaps maybe not to deserve it, but in reality might really need it. That's all hard to do. It's hard to be the bigger person all the time, which is what following this meditation can make us feel like we're always the rational, calm ones in the room. And wouldn't it be great if we could be the ones to freak out sometimes instead of having to keep it together all the time? That's not unique to Stoicism, of course. Being consistent as a man or a woman practicing any life philosophy, Stoicism or otherwise, is work and sometimes feels like an unfair amount of work. But it's the work we're choosing to do. It's the work Stoicism asks of us, and so we must do it. Today is the first episode I'm going to take a question from a listener and do my best to answer it. This one comes from Nathan, a middle school teacher here in the U.S., I believe. And the first little bit of the message is cut off, but there's enough here to get the gist, and I'll fill you in on the part you missed at the other side of the message. Here's Nathan.
Stoics' response to not getting upset with middle schoolers, since I'm a middle school teacher. Every time you're telling them to be quiet, they don't listen. And I'm usually the chill person in the room, but after so long, I just start getting angry, and I'm trying to figure out a better way to respond to get them to listen and to be calm myself, that I don't stress myself out by the end of the day. Because after a while, it just starts wearing on you, and I try not to throw kids out the window. So any practical advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
My father used to say that if he had to be a high school teacher today, he'd probably be in jail before the end of his first period. He's never entirely serious when he says that, but to a nearly 80-year-old man, today's youth can seem absolutely out of control and disrespectful of authority on a level that somehow always seems worse than what we were when we were that age. Nathan's having a hard time keeping his cool. He hasn't lost his temper, but he can feel it coming. And he goes home every night just wound up about how disobedient the kids in his classroom are. Then he wakes up and he's got to do it all over again the next day. On top of that, Nathan, maybe you don't have a way to close the stress loop at the end of the day. Maybe you come home and your home life is just as stressful as your work life. So let me start there. And huge caveat, not a therapist, not a psychiatrist, not a psychologist. This is not professional advice. This is advice from a regular guy. Take it for what it is, okay, Nathan, and everybody else listening. There is nothing that will help you close your stress loop, which is just the cycle of stress and response to stress, like physical activity. You need it. And the good thing is, it doesn't actually matter what this activity is. It can be a 4-hour session at the gym, if you're that kind of guy, or a 60-minute walk around your local neighborhood, if you're that kind of guy. But you absolutely need it because stress and anxiety build up in a kind of nervous, physical energy. And if you don't burn that energy off, you're going to roll that day's stress into the next day, and you're probably going to give yourself a heart attack before you're 50. Stress kills people. We've known that for a while now. So step number 1 for you, Nathan, get physical after work. Maybe even get a little physical in between classes. Do 30 push-ups and 30 jumping jacks or something. Burn some of that energy off midday. And then when you get home, walk on a treadmill, go around the block, or go to the gym and get on a rowing machine. I love my rowing machine. It's my life's blood, honestly. It's low impact. It's an incredible workout. It only takes 15 minutes. It's how I close my stress loop. The next thing you need to do, I think, is find a way to punish these kids without actually punishing them or without it seeming like a traditional punishment. When I was in school and a teacher needed to calm the class down, they'd ask the person or the people causing the disruption to bring their desks up to the front of the class and face the desk towards the chalkboard. So you've got a kid out in front of the rest of the kids looking at a wall, essentially. You're putting them in the corner, so to speak. And this isolates them by turning them away from the group so they can't see the group, and thereby are probably less likely to try to entertain the group, because that's usually what this kind of behavior is all about, right? They're trying to get a laugh, they're class clowns, they're looking for attention. But it does this without isolating them from the learning material. So you're not kicking them out of class, which could have effects for them down the road, like they don't learn things, and that's not good. But you are separating them, and hopefully that does something to calm them down or to get them to better behave. You might also consider separating the, let's say, 3 kids who seem to be the origin of the trouble from sitting next to one another, if they do sit next to one another. Usually they seem to be in the back left-hand corner of the class. That's how I remember it. Maybe you just spread them out a bit, or maybe you move them all to the front row. Maybe that'll take some of the fight out of them. I also like the idea of completely ignoring it, speaking at a regular level through their nonsense, responding in no way, as if you can't even hear them. If they ask you to repeat something because they didn't hear you, you could respond by saying something like, hey, I only say things once in this class. If you miss it, you miss it. And if a good student misses what you've said because the others were too loud, you tell them the same. Hey, I'm sorry, but those are the rules. And, maybe you keep those kids after class so you can fill them in because you don't want to punish your good students, but you want to make it appear as though those good students are getting punished as well, because similar to how in the military and boot camp, you want to solve a problem with a recruit, you get the other recruits mad at them. That kind of social pressure might cause them to act a little differently in class. And then this last one is maybe a little bit too radical. I don't know. I've never been a teacher, although I did teach at a Montessori school for a little bit, but that's a Montessori school, so it's very different, I would imagine. This is just an idea I came up with as I was kind of thinking through the issues that you're having, Nathan. Maybe what you do is you allow your class to end 5 minutes early every day, but those troublemakers have to leave at the regular time. Because I don't know about you, Nathan, but I remember 5 minutes loose, unattended in the hallways between class and middle school felt kind of cool. Like maybe I had time to go check my locker. We had lockers in middle school. Or I could get a soda from one of the vending machines because we had those too. So it's like a little bit of flexibility and freedom, some breathing space between classes. And your good students would probably really appreciate that. And your not so well-behaved students might be convinced to start behaving better if they knew they got that little bit of flexibility between classes as a result. Again, maybe that's a little too radical. Maybe you shouldn't do that, but that's the best advice I could come up with. And another caveat here, I'm not a teacher, as I said, so don't take those ideas and run blindly with them just because maybe they sound good to you, but consider them and maybe talk with some other teachers or people on the school staff who understand the psychology of middle schoolers. I think that's a good place to start. Now, you also said, and this was the bit of the message that got chopped off at the beginning, thank you for being in the Discord and adding the clarity for me so I could get the whole picture. You also said you're having a harder time controlling your temper in general as you get older. So 1, get some therapy. Even if it's only once a month, just do it. Talk to a person who has no connection to you, is a proper psychologist, and just talk through stuff. It's not enough to have a friend to vent to commiserate with a friend, because a friend is probably not going to question you or pressure you a little bit to think about why you feel the way you feel. You need someone who can do that and who can give good advice to you. The kind of advice that has medical evidence backing it up, right? Somebody who really knows how the human mind works and how to, let's say, do therapy well. So find a therapist, go once a month. It doesn't have to be every week or every day. Just go once a month and just talk and get this kind of stuff off your chest in a productive way. I will tell you from personal experience, and I don't have any therapy sponsors on the show, but I've heard of, what is it called? I think it's called Better Health. I think they allow for telemedicine therapy, and I think it's pretty affordable, so you don't have to go anywhere. I can't speak to how great it is. I'm only mentioning it because I'm thinking of it as I'm talking right now. But I can tell you from personal experience that therapy in general, the feeling you get after unloading a bunch of stuff you feel like you can't say to your boss, or you can't say to the kids in the classroom, or you can't say to your wife or your husband, whatever the case may be, when you finally get to say those things and somebody says, hey, those are really valid feelings you're having, and you're like, oh my God, they are? You're not mad at me for saying that? And then you get some professional advice about how you might be able to manage those feelings. You feel amazing after that conversation. And it really, once a month, really can be enough. It's like you have this huge weight, and I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it's this huge weight lifted off your shoulders. So therapy, I think, is definitely something you should consider, Nathan. And the physical activity bit that I talked about before, I think fits here as well. You've got to put the negative energy into something productive. Walk, run, go to the gym, join a boxing class, anything. All exercise is equally beneficial in this case. Mindfulness meditation can help for some people, but I have found in the past, especially with us men, that it's harder for us to let go of stress through just mindfulness meditation. Women, at least in my experience, for some reason seem to have an easier time with that being the way that they close their stress loop, so to speak. And I think that's why self-care for women is so frequently marketed as scented candles and bubble baths. Us men would probably benefit from scented candles and bubble baths. I mean, I don't know. That sounds pretty great. So who knows, Nate, go take a bubble bath. Maybe that'll be helpful. But do something that's about you letting go and shedding this excess energy, this pent-up aggression. I'm not using energy in this woo-woo, like spiritual energy kind of way. I'm saying it's physical energy. I mean, if you're anxious, that's like a vibrating feeling in your chest. You can physically feel that energy when you're about to lose your temper or when you're at your maximum stress load. And then lastly, the stoic part of this is to remember that those kids don't control you. They don't make you bad. They don't make you less of a teacher. And they don't have any real power over you. You're getting mad. You are getting mad. That's on you, not them. They're kids. They may be obnoxious, annoying kids, but you were probably obnoxious and annoying too when you were in middle school. I was. You're likely getting mad partially because of your ego. You think you deserve to be respected, but no one deserves anything, not really. And maybe it's also a little bit of you feeling like you're failing because they won't listen to you, like you're not a good teacher because you can't rein them in. But that's not a reflection of you. That's a reflection of those kids and all the baggage they might bring with them from home. Who knows what their home lives are like? That's another thing you could think about, kind of this perspective. Maybe they come from really bad homes. You don't know, of course. You don't know what's going on when they're not there. And imagining some of that stuff, not completely ascending to those impressions, but understanding you don't understand it, could be helpful in you reframing how you look at these troublemaker kids. The truth seems to be, Nate, that you're showing up every day, you're in a position to educate these kids, and you're putting in the work to do it. So don't let your ego or your expectations get in the way of seeing your effort for what it is. It's noble. And if you feel genuinely that you are not making a noble effort, only you can know that, then ask yourself how you could make a better effort and make those changes. I think you're going to be fine, Nate. Just find some physical activities, get creative with discipline in the classroom, and seek out some meaningful therapeutic resources. Maybe this podcast is one of them. If you do those 3 things, I bet you will feel like a new man within a month. So good luck, Nate, and thank you for the question. Thanks for listening to this episode of Practical Stoicism. I truly appreciate it. In whatever app you're listening, if you haven't hit that follow button or subscribe button, please do. That way you will be made aware of new episodes every day, because I release new episodes every day. Also, if you haven't done so yet, leave a review of the podcast in your podcast player app of choice. I would really appreciate that. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, take care.